Many thanks, Uroš, for agreeing to this interview. I have to say you accepted like a flash. Maybe that's because you were or are the trending topic in the profession?
I don't know, am I?
Well, let's have a look at it. Let's see. I'm finally doing face-to-face interviews again. And obviously, this is a welcome development for me. But maybe for you, now that you're working for the RSI platform Interactio, it's quite the opposite?
Not really. No, not really, I have to say. No, things are shifting and changing all the time. That's how our world works. So I think as much as the pandemic and the lockdowns and not doing things in person were a shock to the system, it was also a reminder that the world is an ever-shifting place, which is something we tend to forget when we're in the comfort zone.
Tell me, Uroš, what exactly is your role in Interactio? What do you do there?
Okay, my official title is Vice President of RSI and Chief Interpreter. What does that mean? As Vice President of RSI, I'm in charge of our interpreters unit, which recruits, books, manages, builds teams, makes sure people are paid on time, and all the mundane stuff that goes with organizing interpretation teams and assignments. Aside that, I also look after the congruence of the interpreter population that works with us. And that's something that's very close to my heart, and it's something that I really also enjoy doing. We're only just starting also to build a community with our interpreters, so that's also another thing that I'll be working on a lot with my team.
Many people see this rapid move as a clear example of revolving doors, from AIIC President to the commercial world of RSI. What do you say to that?
I don't know what to say to that, because I don't really understand is it an accusation? What is it? Let me explain. AIIC is a professional association. It has members from all walks of the profession. Staff interpreters, freelance interpreters, people who work solely and exclusively for institutions, people who work solely and exclusively on the private market, people who work in very diverse markets. We all know that working in the Brussels bubble is something completely different to working in South America, in Asia, in the US, in Canada, Africa, etc. So the community of interests within AIIC, to my mind and based on my experience, is extremely, extremely diverse, and we sometimes tend to forget that. And that's why, commercial interest, every interpreter has a commercial interest. We all do this as a paid profession. Yes, we volunteer at times. Yes, everybody who has a function in AIIC is a volunteer. So that's something very clear. This is what we give to the profession and to the community. And giving back to the community that helps build the profession and the standards that the profession stands for is an important thing. And not many people are willing to do that, because they know the amount of time it takes, the amount of energy it takes, and I sure as hell know the amount of time and energy it took in the past 10 years as well, absolutely.
So doesn't this create any ethical or moral dilemmas for you then?
No, why should it? I mean, I'm the same person. I am doing now what everybody else does. I have a job, whether it's freelancing, whether it's working for a platform, whether it's being staff at an institution, whether it's working for an LSP somewhere out there, whether it's working as a consultant for an equipment company. These are things related to our profession, whether you're a teacher in a paid position or anything that's otherwise related to the profession.
What's your response to those who accuse you of using AIIC as a stepping stone in your own career?
AIIC was actually a big, what's the word? Yeah, an important stepping stone in my career, as it is an important stepping stone in everybody's career. Becoming a member of AIIC is something every freelance interpreter or otherwise aspires to, because that is the mark of quality, the mark of peer recognition in the profession, right? It is something that we hold close to our hearts, and it's something that we want the world out there, our clients, to recognize more. And it's a never-ending struggle. As far as stepping stones in careers are concerned, spending 6 years on EXCO, and before that many years on the delegations in the European Union sector, was often something that held my career back, because I had to sacrifice my time to that instead of working on my personal career.
Yeah.
So that's something we tend to forget sometimes as well, I think.
Perfect. In the light of events, do you not feel that your current work in Interactio undermines the EP RSI agreement, which was negotiated only a few months before you accepted your new position?
No, I really don't see how it would undermine it. At the end of the day, it's an agreement that has an end date. So once business continuity expires, the agreement expires. It was negotiated, I think, almost a year ago now. And it was negotiated by myself, Fred Girard, and Tomasz Opuczenski from the EU negotiating delegation. So we know that agreement inside and out. And my position here does not in any way undermine that, because it has really nothing to do with it. NCRSI as such is a measure that is deployed by the European Parliament as sort of a last resort when no other capacity is available. And I see that as a way of ensuring multilingualism. And during times of COVID, it was a very welcome way of ensuring income for people who are out of work for over a year in many cases.
True.
And we tend to forget sometimes.
Yeah.
We tend to forget what the reasoning behind going for that agreement was. The main thing was to have a framework within which people can come back to work in an organized, safe manner, so that there can be continuity in providing multilingualism, in ensuring the professional continuity of interpreters, because don't forget, quite a few people left the profession in the meantime.
Yeah, true.
Because they were completely out of pocket. And that's why I'm very proud of the fact that we managed to negotiate that agreement. And I think the sector is as well. The sector adopted it with, if I'm not mistaken, a 90% majority at the vote. So nothing just came out of the blue.
Can you see why some people are surprised, disappointed, or even furious with your change of hat?
Not really.
Not really.
Not
Okay.
really. I mean, I've received a few messages of people saying I've crossed over to the other side. I don't see where the other side is. RSI is a new reality. And, it's something we need to adapt to. Interpreters, we tend to be a funny bunch, right? We have to be individuals who are capable of improvising, who are capable of adapting, who are capable of on the spot decisions every single moment that we're doing our work. Yet we're extremely conservative when it comes to things like that, which is perhaps understandable because of that huge exposure to a continuous flux. Then I think it's quite a natural fallback position to be very conservative about certain other things relating to our profession. But yes, there have been a few voices that were expressing misgivings, but I've received countless messages from people saying, "Oh, we're so very happy that there's somebody who knows about us interpreters working with an RSI platform, because that is assurance of things moving in the right direction." And there's this big fear of RSI taking over everything. I mean, RSI is not the enemy here. RSI is a response to what the market wants. Now, whether it's going to be the interpreters who co-shape that, or we just let it live a life of its own, I think the answer is quite clear what the better option is.
Related to that, you are on the record as saying that in the post-COVID era, RSI will be simply another part of the profession. Your professional future and Interactio's to some extent depend on this. Do you still see potential for growth now that we are gradually returning to in-person events?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Sure. Yeah. Especially in the hybrid sphere, because COVID has done one thing. It's exposed practically everybody in the working environment and in the educational environment, so future people in the working environment, to remote work of one sort or another, to remote conferences, remote meetings, with interpretation as well. And as people start realizing the opportunities that brings, it also increases the opportunities for demand for multilingualism. And that's something that's clearly been shown in several cases. I won't quote which institution, but there is an institution that during COVID, and okay, during the lockdown it was complicated, but right after, thanks to the introduction of RSI, increased the number of meetings exponentially, increased the number of days it provided to the interpreters.
True.
The clients are happy, people from very far away can take part in meetings. The attendance of meetings is unprecedented, and that's something that's happening out there. That's the positive aspect of this change that I see, namely it opens doors to opportunities we never even had before. And that's something we tend to forget. We're only looking perhaps at the threat that this poses to the incumbent model, and in truth it doesn't very much. It was actually something that saved the incumbent model during the time when it was impossible to do work on site, and we managed to do it using RSI, and the incumbent model is coming back, but enhanced with the hybrid technology, which allows for more participation, more multilingualism, which is what this profession is all about.
So no way going backwards. I mean, everything's changed forever then.
I mean,
there's
no way going to tomorrow. Today is now, and tomorrow is tomorrow.
True.
And I yes, maybe some clients, some institutions, some segments are going to return to what they were doing before.
But
if they can afford it, if their model is able to withstand that, if their budget is able to withstand that, etc., etc., and if their client base, when we're saying client base, the users, are willing to do that.
True.
In many cases, they're not. In many cases, they're saying, I don't want to travel far and wide and spend my life living out of a suitcase. I prefer doing a few conferences online and going only to a few things live. And that's something that's really settling in, especially with the younger generation. It's very interesting to see that there's a big preference for doing things online. Now, we can have another interview for hours on end on the importance of human contact and the limitations of virtual meetings, and I think we're all aware of that. But bearing that in mind, I think the trend is clear.
Looking at the RSI market, how does Interactio stand out from its direct competitors? Why should we feel we're in safe hands with Interactio specifically? Why should we feel our ears are safely protected with you? We have colleagues, you know that, off sick with hearing damage after interpreting on Interactio.
Okay, let me take that last question first, because that's a pretty loaded question, right? Off sick after interpreting on Interactio.
Sorry.
First things first, there have been problems like this before. Andrea Cagnato, Christian Guiducci, we all know these names. They were the ones everybody was rolling their eyes backwards when they spoke up at sectoral meetings complaining about sound quality in a purely physical setting. There was no, RSI wasn't even born back then. And they came back to me the other day and said, you're actually the only person who remembers that. And that's something we shouldn't forget. Why am I saying this? This is not to justify, to play down the problems of these complicated setups which can generate problematic sound. But one thing needs to be understood. In a classical setup, you have control practically over the entire sound chain. Every single microphone in the room is set up the way you want it to be set up. It's calibrated for the entire room, for the entire setup, the interpreter's consoles, etc., etc. All that is a single system. When you're talking about hybrid meetings, virtual meetings, etc., etc., the participant is the weak link, and this is something we've come to realize now. Remember the early days of RSI? Everybody was on about audio shock. Remember? That was a big story a couple of years ago. Then it was about having ISO-compliant headsets, right? Then it was about ISO-compliant sound and the processing of sound by platforms. So we've gone through all of those stages and paces, and the conclusion is that the problem is on the participants' end. Because the participants are using extremely diverse equipment. Sometimes I can safely say are abusing equipment because they're using it in a completely improper way. The interpreter is always going to take care of themselves. The interpreter is going to make sure they have the best mic, they have the best headset, they have the best setup. It's in our professional interest to do that, clearly, right? Professional conference organizers are also going to make sure that happens. Problems happen when people connect from remote with bad connections, with poor equipment, with wrong setups, because they are dispersed. And the technician can't look after every single little computer out there from 200 or more participants, making sure everything is set up correctly. So, coming back, it's easy to pin everything on the RSI platform because it's seemingly the new thing in the chain. But the RSI platform itself, what comes in and what comes out, is fine. The problem is what it is fed and what happens with that stuff. And again, not downplaying. There are problems with toxic sound. There are problems with compressed sound. All of that is still very much uncharted territory. We're only just now starting to see research going into that. Okay. We're only just now starting to see some funding go into learning more about that. And in fact, we, Interactio, we're extremely open to that. We've been offering our platform for testing to scientists, to audio engineers, and they've done that. And compliance is there. So the problem is not the platform, the problem is elsewhere. Okay. And that is what we need to be acutely aware of, and that is what, for instance, some of the institutions are very aware of, and they have clear campaigns educating speakers, participants, what they need to do. Also making sure that they are equipped properly, and even going as far as saying, if you're not equipped so-and-so, and if you're not connected so-and-so, you will not be interpreted.
Exactly.
So, you see, and this is something that's going to require a lot of work from us, because it's not enough to do one campaign and everything is fine. No. Again, interpreters can be trusted to do everything they possibly can to make sure things are fine. The technology as well. The random participant is the problem. In the normal conference room, you have them under control, quote unquote, because they're using your microphone that's been pre-set up and everything is clear. And there is a certain level of familiarity with a standard conferencing setup, right? Yeah. People go to conferences, they know what microphone discipline is, they know you have to switch your microphone on. Most of them know you shouldn't eat your microphone, some don't, and that causes problems, right? And that's something that's sort of culturally accepted. The new mode of virtual conferencing still, I think, requires a little bit of development so that we have a certain standard etiquette for participation, which I think is also going to have to include things like what sort of equipment you use to connect if you wish to be a speaker.
I imagine that one of your qualifications for the Interactio post was your professional experience as an interpreter. So, Uroš, what experience do you personally have with RSI? How many meetings have you done since the beginning of the pandemic? And in what configuration?
How many meetings, I honestly don't remember. I know that at the beginning of the pandemic, I was hit just like anybody else with zero, but then it started picking up, and I've done interpreting, in hubs, then the in extremis version from home in certain cases because that was still under lockdown, and that's in terms of cognitive load, in terms of difficulty, I think we all agree as interpreters that's the most difficult mode of interpreting right now. And that's too going to require a little bit more of standard building. When I say standard, not written standards, but sort of agreed modes of working and collaboration, right?
Okay.
And the discussion is still out on that one. So yes, I've done what's colloquially called work from home, right?
Yeah. I've done that too.
Yeah, everybody has, right? Let's not lie to ourselves. Except, some people had the luxury of not having had to do it. Which is fine. Hubs, hybrid setups, then your traditional distance interpreting where the interpreters are all in one spot and the conference is elsewhere and so on. So I've tried out all the modes.
You have an experience then.
Yes.
You know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. According to ISO standard 23155, conference interpreting includes teamwork to help each other with figures, terminology, handovers. This is all difficult when you're working on a platform. Do you think RSI work really is conference interpreting, or should it have a different name? And does Interactio promote teamwork, and if so, how?
Many questions.
You know me now.
Yeah. No, the question of ISO 23155, first of all, I think it's a great thing that we finally have a standard that defines what it is we do. We've had an association for 70 odd years almost. The profession has been around forever. People jokingly say it's the second oldest profession in the world, and we've had no definition of what it is we do. Now we do, and that's a great thing. And in fact, it also includes certain other elements which are really good in terms of process, code of conduct. By the way, I think we're the first platform out there that has a code of conduct for interpreters based precisely on 23155, because we believe that's super important to be out there in a way that is expected of a professional interpreter. As for collaboration and
Teamwork.
as for RSI being conference interpreting or not, I've had endless discussions with one of the main authors of 23155. A friend of mine, a friend of ours, with whom we were on Excode together. Whether RSI is conference interpreting or not. My thesis is RSI is a mode of interpreting.
Okay.
Or a sub-mode of simultaneous, if you will. You have consecutive, you have chuchotage, you have simultaneous, and you have RSI as a subset of simultaneous. And that in itself does not define conference or not. You can use RSI for court interpreting, for medical interpreting, for community interpreting, for whatever, for consecutive at the end of the day. That's been done too. I've done it on missions. Whether that's RSI, no, it's not, because it's not simultaneous, but it's consecutive in video conference mode. And that's not the parameter of conference or not. Conference interpreting is done at conferences, right? Usually highly multilingual, and that requires a special skill, a special setup, a special set of experiences, and a lot of teamwork between interpreters, definitely. So that's why I'm saying doing that in RSI is the most difficult form of simultaneous interpreting, and it requires experienced people to whom that added cognitive load does not pose the level of difficulty that shuts them down. Right? So that's, I think, what we need to bear in mind. RSI is the most difficult form of performing our profession, I believe, and it's for people who have a lot of experience. Looking back at when I started working 25 plus years ago, if I would be put in a setting before a computer and said, okay, off you go, that would be extremely difficult. You need somebody by your side to help you out, to give you tips, to jump in when they see you're sweating and you know, your hands start shaking because you become nervous and you know you're not going to handle it. You need that. You need that sort of support when you're starting out. So it's something that requires a lot of experience, and this is where I think we should actually be proud of the people who do that, because they're the most experienced members of our profession.
A more personal question now. I imagine you're aware of the soft power you've lost by going commercial. Not all the doors are going to open so easily for you now. You've lost credibility. Do you agree with that?
You think so?
I'm asking
Is
the
that why you
questions.
invited me?
Yeah, I'm asking the questions. I want to know, as everybody, wants to know. You have
doors,
a commercial side
doors
now.
opening. We all have a commercial side.
Yeah, but
None of us do this for free.
Okay,
We all work in order to pay the bills.
But
we
your
all work
reputation,
because it's a job.
You had a reputation, you've done a lot of things for AIIC and all.
Yes, I have, and I'm very proud of those things, and those things haven't gone away. As for doors opening, doors don't.
Was there always an interest behind,
doors don't open,
hidden or something?
No.
No.
Doors don't open to titles.
No,
And
but
if,
commercial.
And if they do,
brands.
Then you're doing something wrong.
Okay.
If a door opens only because of the stamp you bear on your forehead, and the moment you don't have that stamp anymore, you're not doing something right. Right?
So you don't
doors open to
think-
people and to what they represent.
But you don't think your reputation is going to suffer from this
In
change?
what way?
Because you're
Among
a brand
who?
now. No? You're a brand now. You're Interactio.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought you were meaning that Uroš is the brand now.
No. Interactio is a brand.
Of course
so
it
we've gone
is.
commercial in that sense, of course.
Oh, in the sense,
You have an
sense that
interest.
I identify myself with
Yeah,
the brand.
yeah.
Of course I do. Yeah,
Oh,
because I
that's
believe
okay.
in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do
You
it.
believe in them.
Because I actually believe that it's an amazingly good product. The logic behind it is one that I can very much relate with, because it's not an instant logic, but it's a long-term logic, and that's the way I see it. And this was also the reason why that decision was made on my part at the end of the day.
You don't think you've lost credibility then?
In the bigger picture, no. I think
No.
I'm actually gaining credibility, because now I see things from yet another point of view. At first I was only a freelance interpreter, then I was representing freelance interpreters on delegations, then I was representing the professional community of 3,000 interpreters worldwide in the executive committee, and then as president of AIIC. And now I have the opportunity of also being on the side of a provider of interpreting services, and it's super exciting, and it's very interesting, and in fact it's not that much of an eye-opener, because these are things we know. It's an environment we know, and we know how to handle, and it's very nice to be able to now work with colleagues from the other perspective, and it's actually very rewarding, to be very honest with you.
Funny, because I was going to ask you about your motivation, why did you do it? But I suppose that's it, no?
That's the motivation. I mean, I've been a freelance interpreter for 25 odd years. The daily grind was what motivated me to get activated in AIIC and the delegations then further. That was an exhausting part of my life, because it really takes a lot of energy to be doing that. And after that ended, I honestly had the desire to do something different, to do something which I call more creative, in terms of actually creating something, helping shape something. And this came up as a great opportunity, and that's why I decided to do that. And also because it's a product I believe in, and it's a product the owners believe in. They're in this game for the long run. It's not an instant gimmick. It's something that the founders believe in profoundly, in terms of the magic of multilingualism that this tool can provide to so many people out there. And that's what drives us interpreters at the end of the day. Leaving all the commercial things, leaving all the professional quabbles and everything aside, why did we become interpreters? Because we love languages, because we love communicating, because we love enabling people to understand one another. That's what we do. That's what we're about. Bottom line, right? And this is an opportunity that allows me to help boost that even more.
Good. Well, thanks. Really, thanks, Uroš. Sorry for making you suffer, but
No,
you know, as parents say, as parents say to their children, it's for your own good. And I thought we needed this video, so thank you very much.
Well, then, thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure as ever. And as you know, I don't shy away from difficult questions, and I enjoy a challenge. And I think this was a great exchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.